Hello everyone, Wolfie here. As you probably already saw from the video name, today I want to discuss and recap Phase 1 of TBC Classic. But before that, I want to say that I'm personally enjoying the game a bunch, as I always did. Sometimes it gets rough, like for example not having a tank for a dungeon for a long time, or all farming spots are overfarmed, faction balance, well, imbalance, and so on. Surely there are problems, but I choose to overlook them while playing the game. Trying to find new ways of having fun is always a good idea. For example, I got tired of Mote of Fire not dropping from the few mobs I managed to tag myself, so I hopped on my Abomination of Nature and went to fish. For that moment, I felt like just blasting music on my headphones and looking at a bobber was the most fun thing to do. And it was. I fished for the whole 8 minutes and then went for a bike ride. Anyway, enough about me. Let's recap what happened across the servers. Many realms do share the same problems, but not necessarily. First thing I want to talk about is the content cleared too soon? In my opinion, no. Surely World First went down in 22 hours or something, but that doesn't put etiquette on all others who didn't do it. The whole number of players playing is a massive compared to those who are speedrunning the game. It's their type of fun and they happen to share it with the rest of the player base. And that's totally cool. It's their accomplishment, but not a how-to manual for others. So feeling pressure to speedrun it yourself will suck out the fun, since you will be constantly getting into a dead end, either with gold or with group quests, professions. Playing the game at your own pace or your guild space, where everyone is helping each other out, is the way to go. How to recognize the speedrunning community? Well, they are crying on Discords, on Reddit, on forums and LFG chats about how content gating and slow phases are too slow, and there are no content to play, so they are threatening to leave the game and whatnot. Anyway, the content is still being progressed and people are still farming it and having fun. It is your choice on which side you are. What everyone has to take into consideration is that the game is old and it's not a retail WoW. Everyone knows what's coming in the next phase, and a lot of players have actually played a lot of private servers, myself included, which takes us to the next point on my list. Phases or patches. Private servers are illegal and everyone knows it. Some were shut down by Blizzard, but some were hidden and protected by people who think it enough to go under the radar. Regardless, I think that they have been observed by Blizzard enough to give them an idea how to do classic experience. Starting with vanilla and now with the TBC. Going through patches again would be too much of a hassle, and as I mentioned already, players would just wait out earlier patches with awful talent trees and early itemization, which would render the game a bust. So, just like some private servers, Blizzard tried to simulate a progression through patches with phases of content released. So now, we can't talk about patches anymore. It's phases, and it's up to Blizzard how those are gonna look. So far in Phase 1, we have gotten Tier 4 raids and some other stuff that should have come out later, like daily quests and itemized gear, since pretty much all of it, including talents, is 2.4. And we had been promised Caverns of Time teleport from Zephyr, which was redacted. And in my opinion, it was an awesome quality of life feature. As for what we're getting in Phase 2, I talked about it in one of my previous videos. One of the glorious hiccups and highlights of Phase 1 was Season 2 PvP rings that were purchased by 81 players before Blizzard managed to stop it. Those folks should group up for Fast Fingers Guild. Anyway, this did cause an outrage among the community, firstly because it never should have been available in Phase 1, and secondly because those players who were already top of the tree were allowed to keep it for some time, since as we all know lately Blizzard is slow to do any kind of fix. Since I don't personally know anyone who got the Z-ring, I can't tell for sure those have been deleted, but judging from comments they are. WoW realms and player numbers passed through a volatile period, losing player base and having a faction imbalance, while certain realms were overwhelmed and had queue times even. Faction imbalance had a snowball effect. Once it started dropping, it doesn't stop. So much so that realms ended up being pure Horde or purely Alliance. Before, Blizzard tried to fix this by merging Oceanic realms with North American ones. But that was too devastating for poor players from Oceania whose ping spiked up sky high. Inevitably, it was reversed. Later, Blizzard offered free character transfers for EU and NA, from high-pop realms to smaller ones, while regular paid transfers was totally shutting down some realms whose player base decreased to a number under 100. While on the topic of faction imbalance, the PvP community suffered from the start. Horde was prevailing due to reasons. BGs weren't popping, arenas were only boosted, etc. It was impossible to enjoy the PvP that way. It had to be addressed by Blizzard, and they did pull some moves on it. Same faction battlegrounds started being tested, and the Alliance players started getting loot boxes of some sort called enlistments. By community, it was viewed as the Blizzard paying players to play BGs at least one per day. The content of the loot boxes was interesting to say at least. Some days it was funny, some other days you could have been blessed by RNG and receive a badge of justice or something valuable. As for same faction battlegrounds, there had to be another excuse, since some fanatic players would cry about battling its own faction. God forbid getting teamed up with the opposite faction. So Blizz says it's a military exercise. How it works is that the matchmaker tries to match you up against the opposite faction as quickly as possible. But as queue time goes on, it will put you up against your own faction more likely. It did decrease queue times and allow normal playing to some extent. It was welcomed by many players. On the other hand, they didn't try or test mercenary mode, since this is working and masks are fantasy. Feral Cats got through some changes as well. Energy gain and regen formula got changed at some point, which resulted in kitties being nerfed hard, under the reason of it was unintended in original TBC, so we fix it now. Of course, this caused an outrage among players and especially druid mains. Taking power shift away from kitties is equivalent of taking away Warlock's life tap, almost. Anyway, it was too big of a change to put underneath some changes strikes, so they have reversed it. Druids were not the only class that got broken at some point in Phase 1. Paladins, Protection Paladins to be exact, were having almost no threat at some point. Interesting fact about it is that not every Paladin had the issue, only some reported it according to them. Basically their consecration wasn't generating threat when AoE tanking. Luckily for Paladins it didn't last too long and it was fixed soon afterwards. 1 month after TBC released, after so much pressure from the player base, Blizzard actually moved their finger, but just a little bit in regards of dealing with bot situation. They increased the minimum entry level requirement for Steam Vault and the Shadow Halls to 65. Yep, quite anticlimactic. I mean, we all know it's never gonna get better, as long as they milk subscription from bots, it will not change. Lastly, what I'm gonna mention is what everyone expected, and that's that some items or patterns from later phases were actually showing up in phase 1, like epic gems or late gem meta gem patterns dropping from world mobs. I'm sure something similar will happen in the next phases as well. This was my short recap of phase 1 greatest events and happenings that were worth mentioning, and not allowing them to be forgotten. Second phase is starting on September 15th, so don't be surprised if Vash and Kale are dead within hours, but don't let it demotivate you. What matters is that you do it by yourself and have fun doing so. As usual, stay safe and have fun playing the game. Until the next video, bye bye!